Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full time, and I recently ran a quick competition where people had to design a magic item usable by intelligent undead, but pretty much useless or very dangerous for living creatures. Here are the 4 winners who have a giant metal D20 mood dice and full metal prismatic dice set on their way to them right now. Plus, I have a few items that certainly needed an honourable mention after the competition. This has been a lot of fun, so you can expect some more creative giveaways on this channel in future, and I would love if you would suggest what theme the next magic item competition should be about. Say, merfolk, dragon items, you name it. Okay, on with the winners. Daniel Harris, congratulations on the Dark Lantern. There is no item that amuses a lich as they walk the halls of their lair more than a dark lantern. The silver-framed lantern gives off a light blue magical illumination. To the unwary, it is a simple floating magic lantern. However, it is the source of this light that will send a chill down anyone's spine. For this light is that of a burning soul. The dark lantern uses good aligned souls as any other lantern would use a candle. To the undead, this light is appealing and grants them advantage on perception and investigation while using it. To living creatures, it provides no illumination, despite the magic light that can be seen clearly coming from it. But to good aligned creatures, the light is appalling and gives them disadvantage on all their senses. The dark lantern can be held, or by speaking a simple command, the lantern will float ahead of the user up to 10 feet. The dark lantern provides 40-foot radius of bright light and an additional 10 feet of dim light for the undead. To fuel a dark lantern is where the Lich's devious cunning comes into play. If anyone living opens the lantern to place a candle inside it, they must succeed on a charisma check DC 18 saving throw, or they will have their soul sucked into the lantern. Creatures of neutral or evil alignment will not illuminate the lantern, and their souls are sent to the lower planes to be traded in the soul market by vicious night hags. Only a good aligned creature's soul will cause the lantern to illuminate, as their soul is slowly sucked down into the lower planes. As long as the lantern shines its light, the soul has a chance to escape, and this is what burns from the soul, hope and goodness. As the lantern light dims, so does the soul's purity, and when the light dies, the soul is sent to the lower planes, denying those the righteous afterlife that their deeds would have granted them. If another creature opens the lantern while the soul is already burning inside, the soul can attempt to escape, but it will cause the new user to have their soul sucked in. If the creature is good aligned and opens a dark lantern that holds the soul inside can warn them of danger, or they can take control of the body of the other being, making an unholy trade of who is to suffer. Destroying the lantern will free the soul inside, allowing them to seek the celestial plane where they were destined to go. So the next time you encounter a lich, and they sit by a strange lantern lighting their dark lair as they read their magical books, you can't help but wonder, is that a soul burning in there, lighting the lich's work? Sandry was our next winner, with the Ointment of Burials. This is a dark brown, almost black ointment, sprinkled with different coloured flakes that rests in a container. Roughly 5 to 15 applications based on the container sizes of small, medium and large. Different types of ointment have different effects on different undead during their creation process or applied afterwards, with rarer ones being for higher level undead. So we've got one for a zombie, which applies to the skin and toughens them up, giving them +1 to their armor class. Skeletons invigorates the negative energy and gives them +2 to their dexterity check saves. The ghoul applies to the claws and gives an additional +1 to the DC for the paralyzing claw attack. The ghast is applied inside the mouth and gives 2d4 poison damage area of effect blast that can be used instead of the stench ability and recharges on an even number rolled on a d4. The white is applied to the hands, adds an additional 1d6 necrotic damage to the life drain ability, but this doesn't actually reduce their hit point maximum more than their normal touch does. Vampire spawns and true vampires can be applied to the feet and increases their spider climb ability, making them more potent and able to move at 50 feet along walls and ceilings. Mummies and mummy lords benefit greatly from it having applied to their bandages, which reinforces the negative energy and removes the vulnerability to fire damage. However, if an entire container of medium or larger ointment is used during the creation of a mummy or a mummy lord, it gains significant benefits, removing fire vulnerability, The DC for the Rotting Fist increases by +1, and Constitution increases by +1. This is a difficult process, however. For the Lich, it applies to the hands, and touch spells are with advantage for the Lich or disadvantage for the defender based on who needs to roll. If 3 applications are applied at once, the negative energy of the paralysing touch can be stored and retained and used later, and so basically suppressed as long as desired, with an additional 1d6 necrotic damage added to the attack. If a living creature applies the ointment, they instantly take 3d4, 3d8 or 3d10 necrotic damage based on the type and strength of the ointment. And the ointment leaves behind a patch of necrotized flesh that takes 1d4 plus 3 days to appear. Occasionally, this burn is in what is described as disturbing images and symbols if applied, and it lasts twice as long. Let it be known that these are the applications that we've discovered so far in our travels. There are undoubtedly many others, because there are many different types of undead, and these are the sort of experimentations that undead take. So be careful what you choose to randomly use, dear adventurers. CL Knight 200, congratulations for the Robe of Useful Organs. Have you ever wondered what you might do with that old gallbladder? Ever looked past your ribs and think, hey, what's the point of all this baggage? Well, ponder no longer. This quality slave-stitch robe will turn those antiquated flesh sacks into powerful new tools for the enterprising undead. The stomach can be used in an action, removed, and any target within 60 foot that can be thrown there, making an appropriate ranged attack roll. Upon impact, the stomach will burst, causing 46 acid damage to everyone within 5 feet as it splashes out from that target square, causing an additional 1d6 acid damage for 10 rounds, or until the affected can take action to rid themselves of the acid, usually by dosing themselves in water. The intestines, as a bonus action, may be commanded to spring forth from the body and restrain an enemy within 5 feet, with a DC 20 reflex saving throw to avoid being entangled. To burst free of the intestines requires a DC 18 strength check, and the intestines can be used as a 50-foot rope. The liver, as an action, can be thrown to any space within 60 feet, where it begins to rapidly expand. After 1 round, it fills a 10-foot square cube, and 1 round later it calcifies and turns into stone. The spleen can be thrown 60 feet, where it bursts, covering the floor in an oily slick that acts exactly the same as a grease spell, except the DC is 20. The gallbladder, once per day, can be used to create 1 random dose of contact ingested or injury poison from the available list that is provided in the 5th edition D&D. Or you can roll randomly from 12 different options there. And the DC of these poisons is usually 15. The pancreas has spherical nodes in the pancreas hardened into the likes of marbles. There are about 100 in total. Each of these may be activated to act like a light cantrip, but they can't be reused. The kidneys, each of them are writhing with small worms, and as an action they can be thrown into any space within 60 feet where the worms erupt from the sac and burrow into the ground, creating a 5-foot square pit that is 10 feet deep. Interesting. The heart always gets the last laugh. Upon the death of the Lich, the unused organ immediately activates and after 2 rounds explodes for 1d20 times 1d6 necrotic damage, so quite variable. Also, while not dying, the heart can be used as a metronome because it still ticks. The lungs, as an action, may be thrown, one of the lungs, in a space within 60 feet, where it begins to rapidly convulse and then acts as a smoke bomb that obscures a 40-foot radius and persists for 5 minutes with a wretched stench. While not immediately deadly, the foul air emitted snuffs out all breathable air. Brearag brings us Sahalane's Pitcher. Congratulations. The mad Lich Sahalane was known for being a proponent of the idea that magic should always cost, and cost dearly. What better way to prevent proles and lessers from rising up against you if even simply arming themselves to be on your level was beyond their means? Sahalane's Pitcher at a glance is a square strip of flesh. On one side is dark fur or hair of anomalous origins, with a command word and a sacrifice of negative energy from the Lich or hit points from a living sacrificed intelligent creature. The other side will pulse to life. On that other side, it looks like bare flesh, the underside of the epidermis, and when the command word is spoken, it writhes and dark-coloured veins pulse with the negative energy as the surroundings are mapped out for the next several minutes. At the same time, the words of Sahalain appear emblazoned above the map itself in lurid green glowing energy. Destinations near and far, wherever ye go, set the bar. Blind or not, ye shall see on this blank parchment where ye be. Only worthy eyes may see the way. Blood for blood, or ye shall stay. Out to a range of 10 miles, it will map out the surrounding area on the epidermis, and pulses of dark light will indicate the current position of any living intelligent creature within the range. If the Lich has a particular creature in mind, it can even exclusively highlight that individual, or creatures of that type, for instance all humans or all elves within range. However, the picture is greedy and thirsty. Any creature that doesn't have the intrinsic connection to the negative plane, like the Lich or other undead who attempts to use it, will find that they become the sacrifice to power of this item, and it's got no means of turning it off short of a wish spell, so they will be drained of their life, slowly and excruciatingly. While this will provide a potentially useful map for a short period of time to their comrades, most parties will find the cost far too much to bear. Not a Dog has invented the Simulphilactorum. One of the most devious devices used by liches are the Simulphilactorum, imitation phylacteries that are imbued with a terrible curse. These devices appear in every way to be a lich's phylactery to the untrained eye, and with only a magic spell of 9th level or similar magical effect being able to recognize it as a trap. The Simulphilactorum has an armor class of 5 and 3 hit points. If destroyed by a creature, which it's clearly intended to be able to do, the creature must succeed on a DC Constitution saving throw or die instantly from the Simulphilactorum's curse. Creatures killed this way have their soul sucked into the box as it rebuilds itself and teleports to the Lich's location, or to a location on the same plane previously chosen by the Lich. The creature's body then reanimates as a ghast on the following turn. Once a Simulphilactorum has a soul within it, it is considered as being charged. If the creature succeeds on the saving throw when they destroy the Simulphilactorum, it is permanently destroyed and the creature takes 4d12 necrotic damage, but does not die instantly if reduced to 0 hit points, and does not have their soul removed and placed in the Simulphilactorum. When charged, the Lich can use an action to destroy the soul trapped within and activate one of the following effects. They can create a negative energy bomb. The soul is used to turn the Simulphilactorum into a bomb specifically designed to target the living. The Lich places the Simulphilactorum at a location, and the next time a living creature comes within 10 feet of it, the Simulphilactorum explodes, releasing a blast of negative energy over a 50-foot radius. Creatures in this area must make a DC 20 Constitution saving throw, taking 8d10 necrotic damage on a fail or half as much damage on a success. Creatures reduced to 0 hit points this way are killed instantly and reanimated as a ghoul on the following turn. This effect does not harm undead creatures. They can also expend the charge to make a soul siphon. The Lich destroys the Simulphilactorum and absorbs the soul's energy, fully restoring all hit points the Lich has lost and removing any negative conditions or spells on the Lich. Additionally, the Lich gains a number of temporary hit points equal to half its maximum hit points. Undeath Conversion is another ability that can be used. If the Lich's phylactery has been destroyed, the Lich can use the power of the soul in his Simulphilactorum to instantly convert the box into a new phylactery, a proper one. If the Lich is within its lair when it does this, it can teleport the phylactery to anywhere within the lair. If not, the phylactery is transported to a harmless demiplane for 1 hour, at the end of which it is returned to the possession of the Lich. If the Lich is killed while the phylactery is in the demiplane, the phylactery will return to the location of the Lich at the time this effect was used. Wraith Creation is the last ability that can be used. The Lich uses the Simulphilactorum soul to create a Wraith. The Wraith is under the Lich's control and acts on its own initiative. The Lich can issue telepathic commands to the Wraith at any time, which requires no action. The Wraith is acting on its own accord. The Wraith does not count as a summoned creature or a companion animal. If a charged Simulphilactorum is destroyed by any other means, the soul within is released in a burst of positive energy and sent to the appropriate afterlife. All creatures within 30 feet of the Simulphilactorum must make a DC 20 Constitution saving throw, taking 4d10 radiant damage on a fail and half as much damage on a success. Undead creatures make their save at disadvantage and take triple damage. from this blast on a failed roll to save, or half that much damage on a success. If a creature other than the Lich that created it attempts to use the soul in a charged Simulphilactorum to use one of its effects for any other means, the Simulphilactorum converts the soul into unstable mixtures of energies that explodes, releasing a destructive spectrum of magical forces. All creatures within 30 feet of this prismatic blast must make a DC 25 Constitution saving throw or take 1d12 acid, 1d12 bludgeoning, 1d12 cold, 1d12 fire, 1d12 force, 1d12 lightning, 1d12 piercing, 1d12 necrotic, 1d12 poison, 1d12 psychic, 1d12 radiant, 1d12 slashing, and 1d12 thunder damage on a fail, or half as much for each type on a success. Wow. Living creatures reduced to 0 hit points this way are mutated into one of the following creatures, but retain their mental statistics, memories, and alignment in any class levels they have, and are restored to full hit points for their new form, adjusted to their constitution modifier and class level. The form they take is determined by a roll of 1d10, so they could become an Etin, a Monodrone, a Gorilla, a Mephit, a Brownie, a Yeti, a Troglodyte, a Quickling, a Quaggoth, or a Myconid. This transformation is permanent and can only be undone by a true polymorph spell or a wish spell. Charles Rainey brings us, he's inspired me with his Vapors of Vestigial Vitality. So I've deviated from what he suggests, and also I was recently reading a Judge Dredd comic featuring Judge Death, Mean Machine Angel, and Dredd going on a mission into the Cursed Earth called The Three Amigos. In that story, Judge Death repeatedly left his possessed, rotted body and invaded the mind and body of living people, taking them over and at the same time reading their thoughts to learn their secrets. This seems like an excellent magical effect for a Lich, who could prepare by feeding a fresh soul into their phylactery, and then at some point activating these Vapors of Vestigial Vitality, releasing the cloud of vapors, which causes the Lich's body to dissolve as if sprayed with acid, all equipment crumpling to the ground, and for the next 12 hours the Lich becomes a ghost, but retains their full mental faculties, and the DC for all their ghost abilities becomes 18, and they gain Withering Touch rather than their usual Paralyzing Touch. After that 12 hours, they must leave any body they are possessing and return to their phylactery, where they begin to reform their undead body once more. The secrets to making the vapors are closely held by those very few liches who have uncovered this technique, but there are rumours that it involves acquiring the supernatural breath of a Dracolich, a potion of heroism, and an Ion Stone. Any living creature that unstoppers the flask of vapors is subject to an immediate saving throw DC 21 Constitution save versus a cloud of acid, taking 8d6 acid damage in the first round and 2d6 acid damage at the start of each round until they are immersed fully in water. Half damage if they make the saving throw and no ongoing damage. If the living being is reduced to 0 hit points, their body is destroyed, and a hostile ghost is summoned in that location. It no longer recognizes any friends or family and is hostile to any living creature. Brendan Weldon has come up with an artifact named Callumvores Scales of Judgment, appearing like a set of brass scales held by a skeletal hand. When a lich, a vampire, or any intelligent undead creature truly feels remorse, regret, or sadness over their transformation into undeath, they may find that this curious item has seemingly appeared among their belongings. Upon touching the scales, they will immediately obtain a full and complete understanding of how it is used. When a living creature places their hand upon the scales, it will not move regardless of how much force is applied. However, when an intelligent undead creature places their hand upon the scale, it will immediately move to a leveled out position. A lich must place their phylactery on the scale and put their hand atop it. On the opposite side of where the hand is placed, a pale, luminescent, beating heart will appear. Placing the heart against their chest will cause the heart to pass through the skin, bone, and clothing, and may have, upon reaching the center of the chest, merge with their heart if they have one, or take its place in the location if one is not available. After 1d4 minutes, the heart will stop beating and the creature will die a true death. A lich's phylactery will then turn to ash. 1d12 hours later, the body of the deceased will be the target of a true resurrection spell, returning the being to life in a state of perfect health, as though they'd never become undead. During the hours following the being's true death, they will stand and be judged before Callumvor, god of the dead. for the Forgotten Realms setting at least. If the being is truly remorseful and repentant before the God of the Dead, they will be given a list of tasks to perform upon returning to the land of the living, difficulty and number equal to the acts and deeds performed while undead. This individual will never again be able to be turned into any form of undead and must actively seek out and destroy the undead whenever they find them, and if possible find a way to redeem the undead as well. The now reborn being will be compelled to carry out whatever tasks and orders he or she was given, and will live for this singular purpose until they are all achieved and they have released from service to forge their new path in life. Once the true resurrection is complete, the scales will vanish and once again find itself among the trinkets of some intelligent undead's possession, until the day that they too will take notice of it. Only one set of the scales appears anywhere on the world at any time. Max Hepner brings us the Staff of QuasiNegativity. Since a Lich is connected to the negative energy plane, I think a staff that draws power from the quasi-elemental planes that border the negative energy plane would have some interesting uses. For instance, the plane of salt could be channeled to desiccate a living creature by literally destroying the water that they're made out of, probably as a blight spell. The plane of vacuum could destroy air in a radius around the Lich as long as it is concentrated on, which would be a good way to keep medium-sized melee attackers away from it. Plane of dust disintegrates things, turning them to dust. The plane of ash would allow the Lich to counter fire effects in a similar manner to the counterspell, due to the plane of ash's extreme cold, except it could be done with mundane fire. For instance, a shape-changed adventurer who's turned into a gold dragon could simply have their breath weapon halted as if it were nothing, and being able to counter things like fireball without expending a spell slot would be very advantageous for a Lich that wants to protect a horde of lesser undead and, of course, its library. The staff would probably be made of voidstone and other materials specific to quasi-elemental planes. Quincy Coons came up with the kernel of an excellent idea, an unholy knife that animates any body part severed with it, transforming the dead meat into a floating undead familiar. I particularly like this idea, so I've developed it a little bit. The secret is that the blade is not made of metal, it's actually the twisted and mutated skull of a demon. The eye sockets are the tips of the crossguard, much like a hammerhead shark. They are empty pits that have the lurid spark of undeath gleaming inside them. The blade is serrated with the demon's razor-sharp teeth. The handle is the grossly distorted and shrunken skull case, which now looks more like a spiral twisted ram's horn. The blade has a blunt tip and can't inflict piercing damage, but counts as a +2 slashing weapon. When an undead creature commands the blade to bring to life the lifeless, and then strikes a dead body, it will chop off either one of the limbs, the head, or a pile of spilled internal organs. The organs use the same stats as an octopus for movement and grappling attacks. The ink cloud is instead DC 13 Constitution saving stink cloud as per the spell. The limbs are crawling claws that also have a flight speed of 20 feet per round. The demon blade can animate a torso which behaves like a mimic, except it can only disguise itself as a disgusting limbless headless corpse. Otherwise it can also fly at 20 feet per round and attacks with a bludgeoning strike of internal organs. The animated head can't speak unless the DM has a very good reason for them to do so. If a living creature tries to use the Unholy Knife, it will instead attack them, flying at 20 feet per round, otherwise same stats as a flying sword, except the damage is that of a dagger. If it scores a critical hit against a living creature and that creature fails a DC 13 Constitution saving throw, they have just lost a limb, which will become an animated undead creature within 4 rounds, attacking the body it just came from. Now, of course, demons will be demons, and the demon with the power of undeath is, well, who knows what effects having this knife around for too long is going to have on the environment. Huoya Talus provided a well-thought-out rod that allows the Lich to control incorporeal undead, the Rod of Stitched Shadows. This ornate-looking rod provides additional defences to the arcane scholar who continues to seek knowledge beyond that little amount of years the mortal life has provided. Made of the bones of a murderer, wrapped in the flesh of his victim, and soaked in the blood of the wrongly accused, this rod is tricky to make, but well worth every incantation. The rod, although weird-looking to the standard adventurer and radiating a clear aura of necromancy upon inspection by divine magic, functions as nothing more than an odd club within the hands of the living. It's also useless to any undead unless they possess a will of their own and a modicum of spellcasting ability. The intricate runes burnt through the skin and seared into the bone provide a focus for the undead spellcaster to dominate any spectral undead it wishes, providing their connection to the plane of negative energy is not stronger than their own. The rod is usable once per day, becoming fully functional after 24 hours have passed since it was last used. To invoke the magic of the profane tool, an intelligent undead need only channel the power of any spell slot and point it at a spectral undead within sight, whose total hit dice did not exceed their own. The charisma saving throw is DC 20 plus a level of the Lich's spell slot used to activate the rod. If the saving throw is successful, the spectral undead may never again be the target of the rod's specific power. However, if the incorporeal undead fails the saving throw, it is forevermore fettered to the rod until it is destroyed, released by the Lich, or the magic of the rod is unravelled. The act of successfully exerting such control over another comes with a cost, however, for as long as that undead is bound within the rod, the Lich's own connection to the plane of negative energy becomes the target's primary source of sustenance. This reduces the intelligent undead's maximum hit points by a total number of hit die the spectral undead possesses, for as long as it's bound within the rod. So obviously they're either going to have one powerful one or several less powerful ones, but very unlikely to have a lot of powerful spectral undead, as it will reduce their longevity quite severely. Fortunately, such control comes with a multitude of uses. The spectral undead becomes bound in full to the rod, using it and only it as an anchor, and is thus unable to be moved from whatever location it was locked in, if any. It needs no sustenance other than the magical connection it has through the rod to the undead spellcaster. While the rod is not within the spellcaster's possession, the bound undead can only sense its surroundings in whatever way it normally can. While the rod is within the intelligent undead spellcaster's possession, they gain complete knowledge of the spectral undead's abilities and can, as a bonus action, use it to telepathically command the undead, one at a time or all at once, to perform any action they could normally do. The bound spirits can't move further than 120 feet from the rod, no matter their ability, and they always seem to lunge from the user's shadow, as if it's extending to fit the form of the spectral undead. If the wielder feels it necessary, they can, as an action, release any number of undead they have bound to the rod from their control, thus restoring the drain on their maximum hit points. This act is not taken lightly, as few beings would not resent being controlled in such a fashion, and the released spirits could quite easily turn and try and exact their revenge on the intelligent undead. The rod can, theoretically, store any number of spectral undead within, though few spellcasters wish to incur the wrath of its former wielders or the spirits not bound by its will slumbering within. If the rod is used by an undead spellcaster while there are spirits within which are not bound by their own will, they are instantly unfettered, freed from the former wielder's control, and attack the would-be user until they or the spellcaster are destroyed. Tie-Dye Draconomicon gave a simple example of the perils of using any item that an intelligent undead creature owns or has created. Tainted wondrous items have almost identical magical effects, such as gems of spell storing or a belt of hill giant strength, but there are severe health side effects for any living creature who makes physical contact and even attempts to attune to the thing. Also, enchanted to contain spare negative energy, tapping into the item power can suck the life right out of a living being. How much negative energy is determined by how rare and powerful the item is, so consider that the rarer it is, the bigger reserve of any negative energy that it can hold. So consider those levels and adjust to the current difficulty of the adventure. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, and also if you like what everybody else just did. Check out my Patreon for all the full scripts for these videos. I recommend the script for this one in particular because there's a lot of charts and things which are hard to convey when you're just talking. Buy some sweet merchandise from my Teespring shop. Wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.